Thank you. I call this meeting to order. All members are here. Next up, please stand for the pledge. Reverend Benson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is I need a motion to approve the agenda. Second, anyone?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. 9-0, thank you. Next up is public comments. At every regular meeting of the board, up to 60 minutes have been allotted for public comments. The board will not respond to public comments. However, a member may ask that the chair obtain clarification. Residents, parents, students, and employees of the district will receive priority on the list of speakers. If a speaker is not present when his or her name is called, the opportunity to speak will be considered waived. Only persons signed up may speak. Speakers may not give their time to another person or have someone speak on their behalf. Speakers may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. The board will not hear in open session 1, complaints about the performance of school personnel, 2, personnel issues, and 3, confidential student issues. Should a speaker wish to seek information or share items that may not be shared during public comments, members of the UCPS cabinet staff are available to address your concerns or provide information. Cabinet staff members are seated at the table to my left. The first speaker, Crystal Robinson.
Thank you. I'm deeply concerned that the district appears to be targeting queer students repeatedly while neglecting disabled kids and ignoring the explosion of charters and the future voucher system. I wonder if this behavior stems from the national politics or is it deeply ingrained in the district's history? We fall under the Fourth Circuit that ordered a Virginia school to pay $1.3 million in the trans bathroom bill case and recently ruled that the ADA protects individuals with gender dysphoria. Statistically, we currently may have 206 to 578 trans students in our school. Note, bathroom bans may cause gender dysphoria in trans people. Your lack of concern for these kids is not surprising when you look at the federal and county reports for disabled kids. We still have 300 disabled kids missing on our rolls, plus $1 million earmarked unspent, plus 3 to 5% of potential EC students not being found, which is actually below the state average of 12.93. Union County is only 9.55%. Furthermore, our per pupil expenditures are the 5th lowest in the state and the 6th lowest in the federal funds per child. But we rank 35th for local taxes being used for the school instead of relying on federal and state funds. Instead of maximizing federal and state funds, the Board of Education prefers to burden our local taxpayers. Finally, how long can we deceive our taxpayers before they realize that the services are being insufficient? Without the high scores in schools in the Western growth, the district's ranking would drop to slightly above the state's average of 50%, which is not 1 or 2 in the ranking. This was addressed in the community DI report that y'all just threw away. If the board neglects the federal obligation to provide a free, appropriate, and sound public education, how can we expect them to follow federal laws protecting and educating queer students? It is crucial for the board to wake up and recognize that we've already lost 950 students in 1 year to charter schools. How many will abandon public school when the voucher system becomes available for everyone?
Next up, Karen Baxter.
Hello, my name is Peyron Baxter, and I have 3 questions. 1, how does checking the genitalia of little girls help anyone through school? Let's be clear. That is the intended outcomes of all these anti-trans policies, or let's just call that an unintended consequence. The people that pass these are overwhelmingly male, overwhelmingly white, and exclusively Republican. So much for the fighting against rumors and being the party of family values, am I right? They aren't concerned with people that, like myself, that go into bathrooms or to locker rooms that may be a trans man, or checking the genitals of boys that outperform other boys in sports. No, this is all a concerted effort in addition to overturning Roe that keeps the white supremacist hierarchy in place, where the chilling effects of omnipresent searches remind girls that if they get too bold or if they get too brash, that in the blink of an eye, they can be brutally held down and traumatized by an adult. Now, of course, the main thrust of these efforts are to tell our trans family and friends that they are not welcome, that their humanity can be called into question at any moment, and they can be disposed of like an afterthought. Question number 2, what informs this moment? Well, dare I say, it's the same history that the Moms for Liberty group wants to keep out of schools and libraries. While dissecting history of America, we often speak about the brutality of the slave master, but we forget to speak about it, which played an equal role of the slave mistress. They were the ones that upheld the structures of white supremacy and patriarchy so that the enslaved could be tortured and toil all to serve them. Heck, that's why suburbs were created in the first place, to keep certain people out so they can look down their noses, and they defended that privilege viciously. Enter Daughters of the Confederacy, and then their contemporary group, Moms for Liberty. Third, I ask all of the bigoted evangelical viewpoints, what do you get when you get your utopian goal? What does your future look like once all the LGBTQ people are closeted or dead? When all abortions are banned, or we have a Christian nation, whatever that means? When women are shackled to being in a life of being barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen? Once all immigrants are kept outside of an imaginary border that we arbitrarily drew? Who will you hate then? And in the words of the great Toni Morrison, if you need me to be on my knees for you to feel tall, then you have a problem. And I must say, those who uphold white supremacy, you have a very, very, very big problem. Fix your own problems. Leave us out of it. Thank you.
Next up is Christopher Harbin.
Hello. James 4:17 says that failing to do what one knows is right is sin. After the last Board of Education meeting, I was reading the UCPS core values. In part, they state, management by fact. The pursuit of quality and operational performance goals of the organization requires that process management be based on reliable data, information, and knowledge gained through careful and systematic analysis. This requires that a set of processes are in place to 1, collect and analyze relevant data, 2, convert the data to information and knowledge, 3, share it throughout the organization to create the understanding and wisdom that are necessary to make appropriate decisions, solve problems, manage variation in, and improve the system continually. Such knowledge must be made available to all internal and external stakeholders. Fairness and equity. All student, staff, and stakeholders shall be treated fairly and without regard to race, color, national origin, gender, age, handicapping condition, or geographic location in the county. The bathroom policy proposal introduced last month ignores these values. It ignores data from which the North Carolina DHHS operates. DHHS states that 44% of queer youth report considering suicide, double the rate for high school students in general. DHHS's action plan for comprehensive suicide prevention calls for action to identify populations at risk, provide crisis intervention with a specific focus on people with increased risk, and provide access to and delivery of suicide care. DHHS also seeks school-based youth suicide prevention with the engagement of youth and adult allies, training for NC schools, including intersecting with the needs of students who identify as LGBTQ+ and youth of color. If these are core values of UCPS, we should be able to expect the Board of Education to follow them. The proposed bathroom policy would exacerbate the plight of our LGBTQ+ students. One more causal
Thank
element
you.
behind the second leading cause.
Next
of
up
death.
is Reagan Shaw.
Hi, my name is Reagan Shaw. I'm a mother of a UCPS student and a volunteer for Public School Strong because I'm very concerned about what's happening in our public education system in North Carolina and in the U.S. Here at UCPS, we have a man who makes cruel jokes online about the genitals of transgender people. He should not be allowed to make policies which target our transgender youth. Did we ever need more proof that these nonsense policies have nothing to do with safety and everything to do with cruelty? Bullying transgender people is illegal at UCPS and can be deadly. I don't understand how you all are still allowing Gary Sides to be on the policy committee. It's absurd. Public schools should be safe spaces for all. Public schools do not indoctrinate. They teach people how to coexist. Gay people exist. Trans people exist. Their identity is not a divisive political concept. It's their life. It may not be something that you like or understand, but you have to respect other people's rights to be who they are. That is the promise of America in a nutshell, e pluribus unum. In American public schools, you cannot bully people for being different. You cannot bully them for their race or religion or disability or gender identity or sexual orientation. That's the law. You can't ban books just because they have gay parents in them. In private schools, on the other hand, you can discriminate. In fact, you can fully indoctrinate. You can indoctrinate with your religion. You can ban books about gay parents, and you can ban actual gay parents. You can teach Holocaust denial or flat earth theory. There are no rules about learning facts or learning how to coexist with others. Private schools are not regulated at all, and soon charter schools won't be either. That's ripe territory for controlling minds, for capturing youth, which was part of the Hitler quote Moms for Liberty touted, to no surprise to anyone paying attention. Schools can be the ultimate political weapon. That's why people who don't like diversity and freedom of thought don't just send their kids to private school or homeschool their kids. They want to destroy our American public schools and replace them with private school vouchers. In order to achieve that, they foment chaos and division to try to undermine the integrity of the very concept of public schools. Last year, they created the CRT hysteria, claiming civil rights education was Marxist. This year, it's book bans and picking on LGBTQ kids and families, running around calling everybody groomers, accusing all of us, parents and teachers included, of trying to have sex with children. They don't care about improving classroom materials or teacher retention. They're fixated on trans kids, a tiny fraction of harmless students who statistically are already the most bullied, now being pushed further into harm's way. It's an old playbook dug up from the dustbins of the 20th century, rebranded as the war on woke, and it won't work. You will not use our public purse to suppress others. We are onto the scam, and we are organizing. Join us. Long live American democracy, and long live American public schools.
Thank you. Next, Melissa Fulanowicz.
Hi, it's been a minute. Y'all are looking great. Wanted to start with a statistic that's already been stated, and that's that 45% of LGBTQ kids commit suicide. If that number doesn't scare you, either you're not a parent or you think that maybe if you are a parent, your kids won't possibly be LGBTQ. And I'll tell you what, if they are, they're not going to tell you. That number is scary. It's heartbreaking. These are our kids. I don't care if you don't like LGBTQ people, if you think that they're icky or gross. I'm not trying to convince you anything to go against your firmly held religious beliefs. I will say there are Christians that don't hate LGBTQ people. So even if that is your firmly held religious belief, like, it doesn't preclude you from being kind. That said, what does that have to do with education? The same study the Trevor Project did that gave us that number tells us that affirming schools lower rates of suicide attempts. In fact, if a student feels that teachers or professors care a lot or very much about them, they're 37% less likely to seriously consider suicide and 34% less likely to attempt suicide. Okay, that's the Trevor Project. You can look it up. I'm not making things up. Some groups that have recently been labeled as extremist groups and like to quote Hitler, hang out with white supremacists, say that we should be laser focused on education. I'd like to suggest that this, in fact, is laser focused on education. Educators among us will recognize Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, this is pretty basic first year college stuff for education. I didn't print it out as rainbow. This is how it comes from the internet. I'm not trying to accidentally make you gay, I promise. What this says is, in order to reach self-actualization, where we can actually learn and meet our potential, which is what we want for our kids, I hope, all of these other needs have to be met. Physical needs. You have to be able to breathe. You can't be having an asthma attack and have me teach you algebra. You have to have food. You can't be starving and have me teach you, I don't know, physical education. I look like a physical education teacher, right? Sorry. Safety. You have to feel safe. You have to feel loved. You have to have esteem. This loving and belonging, it's right there in the middle. It's not even the tippity top. If we're banning books because they have LGBTQ people in it, we're saying to those kids, we don't want you here. Okay? We know you can't ban them from the bathroom. That was a funny thing to say. And it hurt people. It scared them. That's on here. Come on, guys. You can think they're all icky. It doesn't matter. They're still our kids. They deserve to feel safe. It's such a small group of kids. I don't even know why this is a focus for us. But we can't have policies that make them feel unwanted, unloved, excluded. It's just, these kids exist. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Next up is Terry Manning.
Good evening. I was sick during last month's meeting, so coming to you a month late to tell you how grateful I am for your recent decision regarding Policy 5-01. Your decision will benefit our students and our community as a whole. I want to thank each and every one of you for your courage and bravery in making that decision. And we know it won't be your last one. These blown up pride issues, aggressive arguments about inclusion, drag shows for children, unfortunately, are no longer about treating people with respect or dignity. Rather, it's a signal to kids and families that this narrative on sex and gender is going to be shoved down everyone's throats until it's accepted. Going against politicized agendas is never an easy thing to do. And you did it because you knew it was the right thing to do. Your dedication and your commitment to making all your decisions based solely on the education and safety of Union County students is so appreciated by all the parents and grandparents who simply ask that their kids be educated. And that's the parents at least 98% of your public school population. I really hope many have written or called to tell you how appreciative they are. Now, I chose not to talk a lot about biological males using the boys' restroom, other than to thank Mr. Sides for bringing that up. The school board has proven many times over that you are morally sound, mentally competent, and courageously determined to protect Union County children. So until you could provide parents and grandparents 100% assurance that nothing bad would happen to our little girls by allowing students with male genitalia to enter the bathroom, you will never allow that to happen. And I thank my God for this board. Thank you.
Next up is Sunday Toller.
Good evening. I'm here today as a member of the gay community and a follower of Jesus Christ. And first, I also would like to thank the board for passing policy 5-01. As we know, our schools should be a place where our kids come to learn academics, grow, and develop into responsible adults. I pray our schools can provide a safe and secure place for our children, where the school focuses on academic education and leaves parenting to the parents. In recent times, there has been a growing concern about the safety and privacy of our school bathrooms. Many schools across the country are grappling with how to ensure that students feel safe and comfortable using the facilities. One of the most contentious issues in this debate is the question of whether or not to allow students to use the bathroom that corresponds to their gender identity rather than their biological sex. I feel confident if statistical data was gathered today, the percentage of students choosing to change their identity would be extremely less than biological males and females. According to a 2019 report by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, out of 1.5 million students enrolled in public schools, only 0.2% identified as transgender or gender nonconforming, 0.2%, while the vast majority identified as biological males and biological females. With that said, I would like to plead with you, our school board, to keep our bathrooms biological male and females only. This means students would use the bathroom that corresponds to their biological sex rather than their gender identity choices. By having this policy, we can ensure that all students feel safe and comfortable using the facilities while also protecting the privacy of all students. Thank you.
Next up is Abigail Prado.
I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the bathroom policy proposed by Gary Sides at the June 6, 2023 Board of Education meeting. As a parent, I understand how important it is for children to have clear and defined boundaries, particularly in regard to their own physical bodies. Having gender-specific bathrooms and locker rooms in our schools is essential to teaching our children that they have an inherent right to privacy and security in regards to their bodies. Allowing biological males into our girls' female-only spaces teaches our daughters that their privacy and safety does not matter, that any biological male who simply claims to identify as a female can invade their private spaces where they shower, change their clothes, and perform their most private biological functions. It teaches our daughters that they have no agency over their own bodies and that anyone is allowed to shower with them or watch them undress simply because they have claimed a gender preference. It teaches our girls that their needs and safety are secondary to those of transgender, non-binary, or gender fluid identifying biological males. In November 2007, in Decatur, Georgia, a biological male who identified as gender fluid followed a 5-year-old girl into the school bathroom. He pushed her against the wall where he forced his hand between her legs and manually raped her several times. In May 2021, in Landau County, Virginia, a boy wearing a skirt followed a 14-year-old girl into the school bathroom where he physically overpowered her and repeatedly sodomized her. After this incident, the boy was transferred to a different high school in the same county where he sexually assaulted a second girl. In April 2021, in Irvine, California, a biological male was allowed to use the girls' bathroom because he identified as a transgender female. The girls at the school repeatedly complained that the boy would deliberately expose his genitalia and physically spit at them. The school refused to take action against the student because of his transgender status. Eventually, one of the students confronted him about his behavior. He quickly overpowered her, threw her into a table, and viciously beat her. In June 2021, a registered sex offender entered the women's locker room at the We Spa in Los Angeles, California. He took off all his clothes and slowly walked around the women's locker room, stroking his erect penis and trying to force eye contact with every woman and underage girl in the locker room.
Staff members at the spa claimed that the man identified himself as a transgender female and that they were legally forced to allow him access to the women's locker room. There is overwhelming evidence that allowing biological males to use female-only spaces is extremely detrimental to our daughter's physical safety and mental well-being. Our Board of Education needs to create a policy which will keep biological males out of our daughters' bathrooms and locker rooms. Our daughters deserve to be protected. Thank you.
Next up is George Prado.
I want to start by thanking you guys for passing the display policy last month. I really appreciate you guys, all of you. But today, I come before the board to raise concerns about a heated debate that has swept the nation, the inclusion of transgender women in women's restrooms in schools. While it is crucial to promote equal rights, we must also consider ways to protect everyone without tearing down protections put in place for women and women-only spaces. Allow me to share with you a series of events that unfolded in Virginia, which underline the concerns surrounding this issue. A little over a year ago in a high school in Virginia, a transgender student was granted access to the women's restroom. While the intention was to create an inclusive environment, it resulted in an incident that has shaken that community to its core after this trans student sexually assaulted a girl in the restroom. This student was then moved to another school, but again used the facade of being trans to sexually assault another student. This incident highlights the potential risks of allowing individuals who were assigned male at birth into women's restrooms. This is only one example, but there are many others. It is crucial to recognize that these concerns are not rooted in discrimination or prejudice. Rather, they stem from a genuine need to protect privacy and safety of all students, especially young girls who may already feel vulnerable during their formative years. While we must respect the rights of identities of transgender individuals, we must also prioritize the well-being of all students. It is essential to find a balance that ensures, without compromise, the safety of those involved. To address these concerns, we should explore alternative solutions such as implementing a gender-neutral restroom or the use of single-use restrooms. These facilities can provide safe space for transgender individuals while also alleviating the worries of female students and their parents. By adopting this approach, we can create an environment that respects everyone and safeguard the well-being of all. The inclusion of biological men in women's restrooms in schools is a complex issue that requires careful consideration. Let us strive for a solution that respects all rights and individuals while ensuring the well-being and privacy of our students.
That's the end of public comments. Did everybody? Okay. Next, I need a motion to approve the open session meeting minutes from June 6, June 19, and June 22nd. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, 9-0. Next up, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. 9-0. Thank you. Next up is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Board. So some across UCPS may think that summer learning and teaching stops during this, or that teaching and learning stops during the summer, but we are continuing. We are in our third and final week of our summer reading camp. I've visited several camps across UCPS, and we'll just tell you that for the last 3 weeks, our teachers have done a phenomenal job keeping our children engaged every single day, providing outstanding literacy instruction. Of the nearly 1,300 students invited, approximately 80% have attended each day. Our summer accelerator camps are also rocking and rolling. I'm very proud of the work of our staff. To develop these camps, you'll see very innovative career technical education instruction happening in our middle and high schools, culinary, robotics, music productions, public safety, really hands-on learning experiences that are very innovative and project-based. On Monday, we will begin our Summer Bridge Academy camp, and we are expecting almost 1,000 children. I do want to give a shout out to our summer site administrators, our teachers, our support staff, our parents, and our kids. Great job to all, and we look forward to continuing to serve you through the first week of August. The UCPS Book Bus began visiting schools and neighborhoods on June 19th. So far, we have distributed more than 6,000 books to 3,100 students. The bus will operate throughout the summer and continue to visit camps and back-to-school events through August. And finally, since our last board meeting, we held a groundbreaking ceremony for the new East Elementary School. The new school will be a modern day facility with labs, space for more pre-K classrooms, and classrooms that support our Health Sciences Academy. I want to thank our citizens, our voters, the Board of County Commissioners, our Board of Education for your support. The new East Elementary is expected to open in the 25-26 school year. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is the fiscal 24 SRO expansion.
So I'll kick this one off as well. We have made a very concerted effort during the last, that began pre-COVID, around the physical safety and well-being of all children across all schools. Part of that safety element is the development and continued relationship building with law enforcement partners. One of the things I've always said since day one of being superintendent is that the relationship between law enforcement and our schools is quite unique for any school system in the nation in a positive way. We have a phenomenal relationship with Waxhaw PD, Monroe PD, Stallings PD, and of course Union County Sheriff's Office. We had begun working on an SRO expansion plan pre-COVID. During the pandemic, that kind of fell to the wayside and was picked back up last year. Most recently, our Board of County Commissioners agreed to fund year 2 of 3 of that, which is really focused on expanding the number of SROs across all 30 elementary schools. Year 3 of that plan will be implemented a year from now, where we will be fully one-to-one, one SRO to every building, as we are right now in every middle and high school. So I do want to say thank you to our law enforcement partners. Thank you to the Board of County Commissioners. We wanted to give a brief update on the SRO expansion for the fall. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Don Novak, Captain D. Allen, and staff to give you a quick update. Don?
Good evening, Dr. Houlihan, and members of the Board of Education. I stand before you tonight to share some wonderful news regarding the School Resource Officer Program within Union County Public Schools. I would like to say thank you to the UCPS Board of Education for continuing to keep safety as the #1 priority. I would also like to say thank you to the Union County Board of County Commissioners for funding year 2, as Dr. Houlihan had mentioned, of the 3-year plan for this SRO expansion program. UCPS again looks forward to the 24-25 school year when the SRO program will be fully funded with a 1-to-1 ratio. Now I'd like to take just a few minutes to update you on the promotions and the additions to the SRO program, which have been made by the Union County Sheriff's Office. Newly promoted to captain is D. Allen. By the way, I'm going to be changing my name to D. Allen. Thank you very much.
Well, and Don, let me ask, and Captain Allen, if I'm wrong, this is the first captain over an SRO unit that we've ever had. Is that correct? That's correct. Congratulations.
Also is newly, let me go back to that for a second. I'm sorry. So promoted to captain is Ms. D. Allen, and she will serve as the captain over the SRO program. And newly promoted lieutenant is Chris Black, and he will serve as the lieutenant over this SRO program. I like the reaction Chris Black got too. That's good. With the promotions of Lieutenant Allen to captain and Sergeant Black to lieutenant, this created 2 additional positions in the sergeant's area. So those will be filled by Sergeant Straining, who is a former UCPS SRO, and the other sergeant position will be filled by Sergeant Lorenz, again a former UCPS SRO. So we're keeping it very tight-knit here, and we like that. Sergeant Straining and Sergeant Lorenz will be joining the existing sergeants, which are Sergeant Prince, Sergeant Kimball, Sergeant Mosley, and that will complete the leadership team for the 2023-2024 school year. In addition to the 2 new sergeants, 4 new SROs have been hired. Deputy Caskey, Deputy Osborne, Deputy Hackney, and Deputy Carter will be joining our team here coming up in the fall. So we would like to welcome all of these new additions to Team UCPS. These additions will now bring us to a total of 39 Union County Sheriff's Office SROs who will serve our Union County Public Schools families. We continue again, as we've mentioned, looking forward to the 2024-2025 school year when the plan completes that goal of a 1-to-1 ratio. And board and Dr. Houlihan, that completes my report. At this time, I'm also going to ask Lieutenant Allen if she would just quick make a quick
Captain.
address. Oh, sorry. we just talked about that. Let me say what I meant to say was Lieutenant Allen. I mean Captain Allen.
First, I'd like to thank Dr. Houlihan and the board, the county commissioners, Sheriff Kathy, and our administration for the newly positioned and division. It's going to be called School Safety Division. I don't take this lightly. I'm excited. It's a new chapter in my life, and I'm here to serve the citizens of Union County and school board, county commissioners, and the sheriff's office. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Next, very well deserved. Next up is policies for review.
Good evening, members of the board. There are 3 policy revisions on the policies for review and 1 proposed new policy. If anyone has any questions, I will try to answer those. Thank you.
Next up is comments from the board. None? Thank you. Announcements? Policy for August. Oh, we can do that in August. Okay, we have no committees this meeting. I need a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.